Hey, folks. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Our sponsor for today's program has a special new announcement, I guess, to make. Sunset Lake CBD is excited to release the first two products of its brand new functional mushroom CBD line. Focus and Relax Functional Mushroom Gummies. The Focus Gummies contain a blend of lion's mane mushroom, cordyceps, and CBD to help you with attention and mood. The Relax Gummies contain reishi mushroom, how do you say that? Ashwagandha, and CBD to help you better manage stress and ground yourself. Also, I got to say, they're delicious. Did you guys try those? We just got some of those there, the green and blue. If you head, they're great gummies. I've just started taking. We just got them the other day, and they're delicious. And it just I put it right into the mix.
Oh yeah.
I take the melatonin gummies. I take the gummies with the THC, and now lion's mane, cordyceps, and reishi and ashwagandha, both with CBD. One's for get your brain a little bit more attuned, and the other is to manage stress and ground yourself. And right now, you can save 30% on all Sunset Lake CBD gummies with the coupon code MUSHROOM. So all of them, 30% off. Coupon code MUSHROOM. Plus, if you spend over $99, you can choose to add a free 20-count jar of the new gummies to your order. And as always, Majority Report listeners can save 20% on everything else with the coupon code LEFTISBEST. This sale ends on the day of December 26th, so don't wait. Head over on SunsetLakeCBD.com. Take advantage of this deal. Grab yourself some new functional mushroom gummies. See their website for terms and conditions. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Great company, great products. And of course, always third-party tested on all of their products. So check it out. SunsetLakeCBD.com. Pick up those new gummies. And now for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday, Tuesday, Casual Tuesday, Wednesday, Casual Hump Day.
Of course.
Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, December 15th, 2023. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, executive editor of the American Prospect, David Dayen, will be here to look back on this week that was. Meanwhile, Hungary blocks EU aid to Ukraine. U.S. wants Israel to ramp down its ethnic cleansing. Israel takes a pass.
Pretty please.
Supreme Court decides not to intervene in Illinois assault weapon ban. That assault weapon ban will stay in place. Meanwhile, National Defense Authorization Act passes. Headed to Joe Biden's desk. We'll tell you the gory details. Biden seems primed to cave on border legislation to get that supplemental aid. We'll give you those gory details. The Fed Reserve signals rate cuts in 2024. That's positive.
Yeah, that's good.
The New York Republicans pick an Ethiopian immigrant and former IDF to run in the special election to fill George Santos's seat. But honestly, Do we know that she's Ethiopian or formerly with the IDF? I mean, can we trust the Republicans vetting this time around? All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for joining us. It is
Casual Friday.
Casual Friday. And yes, my voice has more or less returned to normal. I'm now, it's a little bit more nosy,
Yeah.
as it were. But let me just say this. Ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha.
Yep.
That's what you couldn't say.
That's what I couldn't say. But in the IM, somebody spelled it out
Thank you, Iammer.
phonetically for me, so I can say
Sounds
that.
like a greeting.
Well, there you go.
Ashwagandha.
Well, ashwagandha, everybody.
you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah.
We'll get into this. I mean, the stuff that's going on now between the U.S. and the Israelis. There was a report out today that U.S. has been taking intel to ultimately decide whether there's been war crimes committed, which really puts to the lie that they don't have the ability to make this assessment now, because they've been doing rolling assessments of this. Supposedly, Jake Sullivan is telling the Israelis, you've got a couple more weeks to wrap up this level of ethnic cleansing. I mean, to call it a war at this point seems ludicrous. We have
It's propaganda.
we spoke the other day about the transfer of weapons, the backdoor transfers of weapons, the open door policy the Israelis have to essentially a warehouse full of $4 billion worth of weapons in Israel. There is, the idea that the Biden administration has no leverage with the Israelis. I think people have given up those illusions, if not weeks ago, certainly days ago, if not a couple of months ago. And so here's where we're at. This is a clip of Sean Fain, and this is it is of Sean Fain out with ceasefire Democrats in front of Congress. Was this yesterday, Matt?
Yeah. Yeah, it was. I was yesterday, and you can see, or at least I saw Ilhan Omar speak, but here you can also see Rashida Tlaib.
You can see her right
Bush,
behind Fain, yeah.
Yeah, Ro Khanna. Just like the usual suspects who have been speaking out, and by suspects I mean, heroic, brave members of Congress who have chosen to take a stand on Israel's campaign of mass killing.
It's exciting to see union leaders getting involved in this, and particularly the UAW, because it both, to the extent that it brings any more pressure on the administration, I think it certainly helps. I mean, there's a reason why the administration, despite the fact that it's quite clear that they're very excited at the idea of Israel going in there and continuing this bombing and ethnic cleansing campaign, that they are feeling some pressure, and certainly having unions line up to exert that pressure is helpful. But it's also an indication of how the union sees itself. And it's also an indication of the burgeoning social justice unionism that is returning to union organizing. The idea that we're here not just to help specifically the members of a union in a particular shop, but we're trying to address the concerns of our union members that exist outside of the specific outlines of the job or the job site, and the broader issues that they're facing within their communities and internationally speaking. And so this is really encouraging to see Sean Fain get out there like this. Here is Fain in front of the Capitol yesterday.
Of what humanity is and can be. The UAW is proud to stand here with our fellow union family, with Congresswomen Cori Bush, Rashida Tlaib, who happen to be a couple of the most badass representatives in Congress. But we stand together to call for peace and to call for a ceasefire. You know, this is a product of our belief in humanity, that innocent civilians must be protected. You know, we cannot bomb our way to peace.
That's right. No.
The only path forward is to build peace and social justice. It's through a ceasefire.
Yeah. Right. Ceasefire now. Yes.
You know, as a UHW, you know, we take pride in our history of standing up for justice at home and around the world, around the globe. You know, throughout our history, we're a union that's always spoken up for civil rights and human rights time and time again. Yes. That said, I want to be clear. What we're calling for today, a ceasefire. It's what the global community is currently standing together for.
That's right. Yeah. Right.
At the United Nations, it's what the majority of nations called for.
Yes. That's right.
And right here in America, it's what the majority of American citizens want.
Yes.
Both of which are true in terms of the polling and whatnot. And so it's encouraging to see the UAW get into this.
Yeah.
And it's cementing Fain as a leader outside of the UAW.
Yeah.
Right.
And, you know, you couple this with the call of timing all of these contracts for 2028 in May. There's a real sense that he's trying to build a movement that is larger than the UAW. And it's exciting.
And I mean, in terms of representing, you know, his union and the members in a more broad, holistic sense, I'd encourage people to check out Jeff Shirkey, who we've had on the program before. He's a labor historian. He wrote about this topic in Jacobin. I'm not exactly sure when this article was it was in 2020. So this is a long time ago, before obviously October 7th. But, you know, there are a lot of Arab Americans in Michigan and in Detroit, and many of them also work at auto plants.
Tlaib's dad was one.
Tlaib's dad, right, exactly, which informs, you know, her activism as a Palestinian American as well. But you can look into the fact that, like, in the 70s, auto workers protested the UAW's investment in bonds in the state of Israel. And so there have been historically literally auto workers standing in opposition to the Israeli government's actions. And, like, to bring it back to that tradition is really moving and exciting, because we're just union density is not what it should be in this country. But hopefully this kind of stuff and bringing it to the broader context and the broader fight for international solidarity, I just think it's, like, very forward thinking, just from the union's perspective of being more robust and powerful.
And also, just like we don't want to represent or misrepresent democracy, and most of our members, just like most of the people in this country, support a ceasefire. And I would point out, Alex Press did a story for The Nation of UAW Region 9A director Brandon Mancia, who was another, basically Sean Fain's got a bench of younger union leaders, and it's called like A Day at the Movies with Brandon Mancia. Check that out in The Nation.
We should also maybe see if we can't, in the new year, get somebody on who's written about Walter Reuther, because I think to a large extent, I get the sense that Fain is basing what he's doing on Reuther's career.
Yeah,
who
100%.
Was both the president of the UAW, and then I think, if I'm not mistaken, may have gone on to be the president of maybe the AFL-CIO.
Yeah,
I
he was
can't-
involved with the AFL-CIO. I don't know what his position was, but there's a book called El Golpe, which goes into his relationship with the AFL-CIO and the AFL-CIO's foreign policy division. And the foreign policy division very pro-Vietnam and establishment. And Ruther struggled mightily with that sort of issue back then.
In a moment, we're going to be talking to David Dayen about, all of the stuff that we've been talking about this week and more. First, a word from our sponsor today. There are over 1.5 million nonprofit organizations in the United States, millions more around the world. How do you know which ones can make a big impact with your donation? Well, one of the answers is GiveWell. GiveWell was founded to help donors with that question. They pore over independent studies, they pore over charity data, and they help donors direct their funds to evidence-backed organizations that are saving and improving lives. GiveWell has now spent over 15 years researching charitable organizations and only directs funding to a few of the highest impact opportunities that they have found over the course of their research in global health and poverty alleviation. Over 100,000 donors have used GiveWell to donate more than $1 billion. I am one of those. We've been GiveWell has been a sponsor for years now. Rigorous evidence suggests that these donations will save over 150,000 lives and improve the lives of millions more. GiveWell wants as many donors as possible to make informed decisions about high-impact giving. You can find all of their research and recommendations on their site for free. You can make a tax-deductible donation to their recommended funds or charities, and GiveWell doesn't take a cut. So donors set up this site to basically perform this function, and the charities get 100% of your donations. It's a great site. All the research is there. It's very transparent. They have stuff where they even have a vertical, which I don't know what that says about me, but that I love, that where they talk about things that they got wrong. And generally, I have to say, it's more like, oh, we forgot to post this research or something to that effect. Our mistakes, I think they call it. And but it's great. It's incredibly transparent. And you can also go back and see what programs they've supported in the past. They're doing they've year to year they change slightly exactly how they're going to present it. This time they're doing 4, I think it is, top charities. They have some like medicine to prevent malaria that they provide. They do bed nets to prevent malaria, about $5 for each net. Nets obviously reduce the number of malaria infections. Enough nets and large enough drop in infections can save significantly in life expectation. For me, I support the cash money to incentivize routine childhood vaccinations. Costs about $160 to vaccinate an infant. The funding provides cash transfers to incentivize caregivers to bring their babies to clinics for routine childhood vaccinations, and particularly in low-income, poor countries. You're talking about saving lives right there. And then on top of which, the direct money payments to the caregivers also helps with their lives and alleviate extreme poverty. So that for me is like a twofer. If you have never donated through GiveWell before, you can have your donation matched up to $100 before the end of the year, or as long as matching funds last. To claim your match, go to givewell.org, pick podcast, enter Majority Report with Sam Seder at checkout. That way they know that we sent you, and that's the way you will get your donation matched. Again, that's givewell.org to donate or to just find out more. You will be impressed when you check it out. Also, today's Today's sponsor, HelloFresh. It is. I just heard a funny story about this, but it's not relevant to.
Okay, all
But
right.
HelloFresh makes it very easy for you, particularly this time of year. But frankly, I feel like this time of year is consistent with every other time of year for me, which is you're under the gun. You want to make your kid or your kids like a good home cooked meal, but you also don't want to spend an hour and a half prepping because you don't have an hour and a half. HelloFresh is the answer for me. It also means I don't have to go to the grocery store as much. It also means I don't have as much food waste, which drives me nuts. And super tasty. HelloFresh, our sponsor today. Want to thank them for supporting the show and for making it easier for me to give good meals to my kids. And now, if you go to HelloFresh.com/majority free, that's HelloFresh.com/majority free. Use the code majority free. You will get free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while your subscription is active. So really, this is the life of subscription.
But still.
But still, it is the season for giving and gathering. HelloFresh can be a season also of saving. You save money with HelloFresh, significantly, dramatically cheaper than ordering in, and even cheaper than going to the supermarket because, again, no food waste. And I will add that you save time and effort. These are boxes of ingredients. I've tried these services before. Some are okay. Some are not so great. HelloFresh is fantastic. In addition to the food being very fresh, they give you 40 options on a menu every given week. You just simply choose it. You order in advance. You can get it one day, not the other day. You can mix and match. But they have recipes that are like one-pan recipes. They have recipes that are like 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 35 minutes, 45 minutes. I tend to stay on the low end and not get too fancy, but it's easy to prepare, which makes it really great. They also have like a whole pantry thing where you can order some other stuff so you can save on your trip to the grocery store. Go to HelloFresh.com/majority free. Use the code majority free for free breakfast for life. One breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/majority free with code majority free. We will put the links in the podcast and YouTube subscription. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking to David Dayen. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. What's going on with our We're Not Matched Up?
Your headroom is all messed up today, and there's only so much I can do.
No, not
before-
you,
Okay.
David. Not
Yeah,
you.
you're great, David.
It's me.
Yeah.
There-
okay.
Oh, no,
that
no,
didn't
no.
do it.
No, wrong
Do
one.
that. No, I like that.
There you go.
That
There we go.
makes me feel superior.
No, not
I
there we
like that.
go. Not
All right, there we go. That's pretty close. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigland on the Majority Report. Joining us, the executive editor of the American Prospect, David Dayen. David, welcome back to the show. Sorry about our little technical difficulties. But speaking of technical difficulties, let's
I'm gonna
just
have a
say
whole
this up
day
front.
of them. Yeah.
On Monday,
Yes.
the Prospect is doing a marathon show.
We're calling it a holiday telethon. So
Holiday
you
telethon.
put me in the Lou Rawls position of the Lou Rawls Parade of Stars, or the Jerry Lewis position.
I was just going to
in
say
the
you,
NBC
Jerry
telethon.
Lewis. Yeah.
And yeah, we're raising money for the end of the year, and we're going to have a really great lineup of guests, including you and Emma. But also, we've got Matt Brunig, we've got Ryan Grimm, Ganesh Sitaraman talking about their new books, Lindsay Owens from Groundwork, Hassan Piker, Jeff Hauser, a bunch of former alumni of the Prospect, and Michael Kazin. And we're doing like a week of Majority Report shows in one day. And the idea is to really show that we're like, a nonprofit news media publication has about as good and proper a business model as X. And so we need the reason that we've survived is that we've gone out to our readers time and again. They've come through with support to allow us to tell these stories about ideas, politics, and power. And we're trying at the end of the year, as we move into 2024, to do it again. And so we're excited about doing this telethon and trying to raise as much money as we can.
And just to be clear, you guys did not pay $46 billion. I mean, I know you have the same business model as
40. I think it
you
was
did-
42 I paid to get in. And it's not paying off, guys. No, we're obviously the scale is different, but the challenges are just as great. We don't take money from corporate advertisers. We don't, we don't have like a billionaire benefactor behind us, and we survive just like you survive on the generosity of your supporters. And so we need to come to you, once a year and ask for it.
Full disclosure, I am not only a member or, Prospect, but also I donate at the end of each year. I've been doing that because it's a great news source and all the reasons you just said. So I'm really excited for Monday. I hope we
That'll be great.
raise you guys
Yeah,
a
it's
lot of
gonna
money.
be a lot of fun.
You're the second, off the top of my head, you're the second person we've had on the show from Prospect this week. So
That's
there
right.
is.
That's
Luke
right.
Luke Goldstein was on the
Yeah.
Talking about his great work on the Google trial. Yeah.
And so excited about that, and I can't encourage people more. And it's all it's tax deductible too for people if they're looking for, right? I mean, isn't that the
Indeed,
case?
we are a 501c3. We're a nonprofit organization. Really, I mean, our administrative expenses, we try to keep them as low as possible. Almost all the money that you give goes right into our journalism and right into producing the kind of stories that we talk about on this show all the time. And we really, in order for us to bring you the stories with the breadth and the depth that we like to do, it takes resources. And hopefully, if you value it, you can afford it, you'll be able to give us your support.
All right, great. Well, let's dig into some of the stuff that you've written this week. It covers sort of the gamut of what we had this week. Let's just start with the the National Defense Authorization Act. That passed yesterday in the House, and I think the Senate the day before. You'd written a piece earlier in the week that the Congressional Progressive Caucus had basically said we're not going to vote for this. I think primarily around Section 702, but there may have been more. Tell us how that worked out.
The broader issue is that all year long there has been this bipartisan agreement that we didn't want to continue this warrantless spying program under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act that keeps getting American citizens, U.S. persons, caught up in the dragnet. The FBI has disclosed hundreds of thousands of violations because they're just searching on U.S. people that basically all of these FISA intercepts, whether it's emails or audio, go into a database, and it's a searchable database. And the FBI can just pull from it if they want to look for things that have nothing to do with foreign intelligence, like gang surveillance. If they want to, I believe there were some queries that were put on donors to a political campaign. There's just been tremendous abuse of this particular section of the FISA law. And it was expiring at the end of this year, which gave this bipartisan group an opportunity to really reform it and to put in the safeguards needed so that Americans aren't being spied on. And, throughout the year, different bills were being put together, and it looked like it was coming down to two bills. There was going to be a bill in the judiciary, came out of the House Judiciary Committee, passed 35-2 out of the House Judiciary, and it had real teeth for reform. It was on a bipartisan basis. You had Jim Jordan and Jerry Nadler coming together on this bill. And then you had this thing at the House Intelligence Committee, which was just sort of a conduit for the intelligence community to say they were reforming something without actually doing it. And so at the beginning of the week, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, did two things. The first thing he did is he said, all right, well, we need more time to figure out which one of these we're going to put forward. So let's just put an extension into the defense bill, which was moving. It's a must-pass bill, passes every year for the last 62 years. So let's just put an extension until April of this FISA provision into the NDAA, and in April we'll take care of it. And the second thing he did is he said, okay, I'm going to put the House Intelligence Bill and the House Judiciary Bill up for a vote, and whatever gets more votes, that becomes our baseline bill. This is a process called Queen of the Hill. This is something that's done periodically in Congress. Well,
and by baseline bill, you mean the bill that it's going to be extended to the 18th, but it's until April, according to this plan. But the baseline bill means then you can put amendments and work off of that bill.
The substitute, it would expire, but then this would take action. Whatever it was, whether it was the Judiciary Bill or the Intelligence
Okay,
Bill.
so if nothing happens by April, the default bill ends up being this bill. Is that it?
Well, it would have to pass. Something has to pass after April, right? So either it expires and you can't do this anymore, or they extend it, or they pass a bill to replace it, a substitute, and that would have to pass the House and Senate and get signed by the president. So what happened is that the Republicans, this is a very familiar story, they got so mad at one another about having to put themselves on the record for one bill or the other, and there was so much infighting, and people wanted Mike Johnson to just take a side, that he ended up pulling both bills. So they're off the table completely. So now all that's left is this extension to April, but it's not really an extension to April, and here's why. There's an annual recertification process for FISA and for this section of FISA that happens every April. And once that recertification is in place, all wiretaps can continue for a year until the next annual certification. So this 4-month extension is actually really a 16-month extension. It takes us into 2025. It takes us into the next Congress, and it takes us potentially into a new president. And so this is why, folks in both parties were so angry about this, that this really relieves the pressure to extend this and to do something about this FISA situation in this Congress. And so the Progressive Caucus was against it. A lot of people on the far right were against it. However, it was attached to a must-pass bill. It was attached to the defense bill. Nobody likes to vote against the defense bill. And but it was very telling what ended up happening. So in the Senate, if a provision this was done through a conference committee. So the House passed a version of the NDAA, the Senate passed a version of the NDAA, and then they had a conference and they put together a final bill. If they stick something in that is not in either the House bill or the Senate bill, which is what they did with this FISA extension, there is a point of order that can be raised and say that's not legal. You got to take that out of the bill. Then you can, the Senate can waive that point of order. So there was a vote, and it needed 60 votes, that if it was unsuccessful, the FISA thing would have come out. The extension would have come out. That passed 65-35. So it barely passed. And a lot of your friends, a lot of your people that you wouldn't think would be for warrantless spying voted for that. And I put the rundown on Twitter, but Fetterman voted for it. The Pennsylvania senators, New Hampshire senators, both New York senators, both California senators. It was a bipartisan way to keep this extension in. And so then the FISA bill passed, or the NDA passed with 87 votes, I think, in the Senate. And then in the House, there was another opportunity because they tried to do it quickly to get out of town under what they call suspension of the rules. So it needed a 2/3 vote in the House, and it got 310 votes, which was barely over the line of that, with over 100 people voting no on both sides of the aisle. But the upshot is that now we have this FISA warrantless spying extended through April, but really kind of longer. And so it's unclear whether, even though there is majority support in both houses, is what we're told, to reform this process, I'm not sure it's going to get reformed.
It doesn't feel like there's a majority of support to reform it in both houses, or did they just get outmaneuvered?
I think they got outmaneuvered. I mean, when you put it into a bill that supports the troops, right? When you put it into a bill that always passes, that has a lot of goodies in it for every member of Congress, it's difficult for them to vote against that.
Right.
Now, I mean, the separation vote in the Senate does show that there's significant support against it, but maybe not full support against it. But people who voted for that can justify it by saying, oh, well, that's just a short-term thing. We can't let this completely expire, and we are going to reform it in April. But we'll see if that's actually true.
Mike Johnson really seems to be good at punting.
Oh, that's the only thing he's good at. That's the only thing he's good at. There have been, now with the NDAA, there have been 23 bills that have passed since the beginning of the 118th Congress.
Will you put that in context to us? I mean, because that seems like, that's
not a lot.
I've never passed a law myself.
The context is, some of those are namings of federal buildings, right? Like naming things after people. Some of those are the three that would be seen as not minor tweaks are the extension of the debt limit, the extension of government funding in September, and the extension of government funding in November. Basically, punting has been the main activity, and also sort of acting like a neighborhood watch program by censuring people and expelling people and stuff like that. That's really all this Congress has done.
According to Wikipedia, Congress enacts somewhere between 200 and 600 statutes during its biennial terms.
Right. So we're below that pace.
Significantly, it would appear.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the supplemental, because you wrote a piece just, I don't know, an hour ago about what, as far as I can tell, amounts to a Biden cave on the border. And you write that it's a sort of a classic Biden move, where it's almost done for the sake of almost like some notion of bipartisanship. There was a story that that I also read about the border, that there's real concern that I guess this came from Semaphore. Let me just give you this quote, and then you can talk about the process as you understand it. Aaron Reichland Melnick, a policy director at the American Immigration Council, noted that the Supreme Court has heard 3 cases over the past 5 years dealing with immigration about the placement of the letter A in one portion of the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. And the issue there is, and you bring this up in terms of like, how do people try and fix immigration in a matter of like a week and a half when it's been a problem that's been dogging people, is that they are drafting legislation right now so quickly. And I don't think people appreciate this about statutes enough. They're drafting it so quickly that they can't really get experts in there to look at it, to really understand what it's going to mean once it gets challenged. All these things always gets challenged. I mean, like, I know this as the son of a lawyer who wrote contracts, that like contracts are, you've got to be very specific. You've got to, each word means something in the legal vernacular. And these contracts only get scrutinized if there is a problem. And then the level of scrutiny they get is not anywhere near what a statute about immigration is going to get. And so they really have no idea what they're doing in terms of the implications of these things, because they're not bringing in experts.
I mean, that's all definitely true. I guess I would be more worried about that if I actually thought it was going to pass.
All right.
And
well, fair enough. Take us through the whole thing.
The reason I don't think it's going to pass is that I see no difference between this effort, other than the fact that it's rushed, like you say, and other efforts that we've seen over the last 3 presidencies. So in 2006, you had this, I think it was called the Comprehensive Immigration Reform Act of 2006, between Bush, McCain was very involved. It was a tough negotiation between the Senate and the White House. They get 62 votes. They pass this thing. It had a path to citizenship. And the House is like, we're not doing it. In 2013, you had Obama and the Senate really put their heads together, put together this comprehensive immigration reform bill. It got 68 votes. It had a path to citizenship for after 13 years. So it was barely a path to citizenship.
Right.
And then a bunch of punitive border security measures. And the House is like, we're not doing it. And so now we have this negotiation between the Senate and the president trying. Now there's no path to citizenship. There's no difference, no path, no new path for any migrant coming in. It's purely punitive. It's just trying to stop people from coming over. And the Senate has said, we're not interested in that. We're interested in our bill. That's the only way you're going to get money for Ukraine, which is the trade here, is a border policy deal for Ukraine. They say they want our bill, which is much more punitive than anything Biden has sought, has put on the table. And the House has left town. So what are we doing here? I guess is the question. I think you can learn some lessons from this, though, right? Because in the last 20 years, what has happened is, as the hardliners, the anti-immigrant forces in the House have said no, the deal has got more and more and more and more punitive, right? It's just gotten worse from the perspective of the balance of, adding a path to citizenship in exchange for some sort of border security thing, and now it's that is 0 on the path to citizenship level and about 100 on the border security thing. And so you ask yourself, why are we doing this over and over again, and everything gets worse and nothing really changes? And I think you have to look at how Biden has handled the border, and how the Democrats more broadly have handled the border as a policy. And
well, they're always chasing. They're always chasing the negative perception about him. I think in your article you mentioned that Biden it's seemingly concerned about the polling numbers showing him being too liberal on the border, and there's no foresight. It just drives me insane of providing a counter narrative. They see this degradation, and yet they're consistently trying to move towards the right, as opposed to being like, what is our alternative vision? I mean, I think Obama tried that with the Dreamers, but Biden seems to have abandoned it altogether.
I think that's totally right. He has seen the border as a problem to be solved. That's it. And he's seen it as something that he wants to get off the front page, which is a ludicrous notion, right? Like, if let's say that there's a world where this deal actually passes, do you really think that Fox News is now going to run stories about how great the border is now, that there's flowers and rainbows at the border because of this deal? Obviously, they can spin any piece of footage into saying that we have a lawless and chaotic border to the rest of the people who don't live near one, right? So it's the idea that there is a common set of facts around immigration is what's driving this fanciful hope that you can take it off the table. You can't take it off the table, and moreover, it's very unclear, since the Biden administration has been restrictive at the border in a cascading way from the very beginning. They have tried to get people, they've tried to remove headlines by stopping people, making sure they get an appointment with an app that doesn't really work.
Extending Title 42, doing the Maine and Mexico.
And did Fox News give him praise for that? No.
Well, but not only that. I mean, in tangible terms, every time they've made a change to the policy, there has been a short drop, a temporary drop in border crossings. And then migrants figure out, well, some people are getting through, so I should go. And it's better than the life that I'm consigned to in my home country. And so I'm going to go. And then the crossings surge again. This is more of a global displacement problem because of climate change, because of authoritarianism, because of violence in the home countries. And it's an infrastructure problem in that we don't have the resources to deal with the number of people coming over. It is not the Customs and Border Patrol isn't being mean enough problem. The problem is much different than that, much broader than that. And no opportunity to try to shut the border is going to change that.
And there's also this dynamic where, I mean, you mentioned the two prior attempts, and all I can think of is in 2006, it was Levin and Laura Ingraham who really sort of undercut George Bush. I mean, the talk radio just hammered him. And then in 2013, we were mentioning, I remember Marco Rubio was champion. This was going to be Marco Rubio's day, and he was going to, this was going to catapult him to be a statesman. And it literally, his career has never been the same. He had to backtrack off that and walk away from it. And structurally, there's it is easier for the right on this topic insofar as all they need to do is nothing. And the problem gets, increases and metastasizes in terms of we're not providing a path to citizenship. We're not providing resources in which to follow our own statutes here. And there's never been, and this is what you're
not just our own statutes, but international law.
Yes,
by the way, around asylum.
And you make this point in your piece, and Emma was just making it. There has not been a concerted effort by the Democrats to create a narrative, any type of narrative around the reasons why like immigration is good and why it's not just how do we deal with this problem, but rather how do we reinterpret this phenomena, if you will, as something that is positive, and how do we make it work within the context of our country and benefit from it?
And that's why public polling shows that the border is out of control and policies are bad and immigration is bad, and because they're getting no other information than that. So that's where the direction is. And now the one other thing on this that needs to be said is that you can definitely spin an argument that, well, Republicans have kind of turned against funding for Ukraine. And so this is a convenient way for them to point fingers elsewhere on that by saying, all we want is a deal of immigration reform, border reform in exchange for the Ukraine money. We'll give you that money. All you have to do is solve this unsolvable problem that we've had for the last 2 decades. You could say that. However, the person that actually tied those two policies together was Joe Biden. So the initial supplemental request had 4 things. It had money for Ukraine. It had money for Israel. It had a little bit of money for Taiwan. And then it had money for border security. And the reason it did is Biden thought, well, maybe I can peel off a few Republicans
this is what's so
by adding border
insane
security
about
money.
this guy's
So
negotiations.
He walked right into that, and they said, oh, borders on the table? Okay, give us this, and this. And
this
so
is-
he walked into this box.
Wait, I mean, this is the story of, I mean, putting aside ideology and whatnot, who knows, right? But putting aside all that, this is the story of Joe Biden's like entire career in terms of negotiations, it seems like. This is why the guy was who McConnell sought out to go behind Harry Reid's back when the great bargain, the grand bargain was on the table. And ultimately, Social Security was only saved by the Freedom Caucus, who refused to say yes to anything. But here he is right here going in, pre-negotiating something, thinks he's being clever and dealing with the Senate from like the 1950s, essentially. And like, I'm going to show my goodwill. The same sort of like thing with Israel. Like, oh, if I get in close with them, when it's time when if we need to, cut things off, they're laughing at him right now in Jerusalem. They're just laughing at this guy.
And by the way, the McConnell parallel is very salient here because 2 weeks ago, these talks were going absolutely nowhere. They were being conducted by Chris Murphy for the Democrats and James Lankford, a senator from Oklahoma, for the Republicans. And McConnell got up and said, the only way this gets done is if Joe Biden gets involved. And
because Joe Biden gives us the store, and that's the only way that he's gonna give us everything we could possibly imagine.
And indeed, he has been trying to. And if there was, a house that had any level of sanity around this issue, or a house, I should say, maybe that doesn't want the issue as an issue rather than to fix it, then McConnell would have won this fleecing.
And I'm sorry, for all of his time in Congress, does Biden not want to just try to play out a little bit what it's going to look like for the House Republicans to continuously hold up billions of dollars in aid to Ukraine and obviously to Israel when look, I understand the Republican Party is fashioning itself as isolationist in some circles, but in the end, the defense contractors want to win out and they want that package going to Ukraine for sure.
Well, I mean, they certainly passed $886 billion for the Pentagon just 2 days ago. So certainly the power of the defense industry is shown there. And by the way, why can't a little of that money go to these important foreign policy challenges if you really needed it? That's the question I always ask.
So,
what do you need a supplemental for?
Is it your sense that the supplemental is dead in the water?
I don't see it getting unstuck. Now maybe after this negotiation plays out and the House Republicans scotch it, that maybe they take the position that Emma suggested they take, and just tried to blast Republicans on this isolationism and lining up with Vladimir Putin or whatever. It's hard because you have two different wars that they're trying to fund here, and one of them Democrats aren't really interested in lining up with what Biden wants to do, which is give billions more dollars to essentially commit genocide in Gaza.
Yeah.
Do Democrats not want that? Bernie was the only
Well,
Democrat.
I'm talking about more the rank and file than lawmakers at that point.
Well, I'm curious though about your assessment of, well, yes, the rank and file, but like your assessment of the split in the Senate, because Bernie was the only senator to vote against that package, and in the House, obviously, there's around a couple dozen in terms of opposition.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. It's very hard to divine exactly what's going on there. I guess Jake Sullivan talked to Netanyahu and said this has to end in a few weeks, and Netanyahu said, "Okay, I'm going to go back to throwing bombs down now." So it doesn't look like this vaunted control that the White House thinks they have over Netanyahu is at all in evidence. At that point, Democrats are on the sidelines. I mean, if Netanyahu obviously has the continued firepower without $14 billion. And by the way, let's not forget that Joe Biden's administration circumvented federal law to supply, I believe it was tank weapons, to Israel without congressional authorization. And so he was willing to do that in support of this, despite claiming that, they're getting uneasy and things need to wrap up.
And we spoke to Ari Talani at Women for Weapons Trade Transparency. And apparently, another sort of feature of our empire is that we have essentially a huge weapons cache. We have them in different places around the globe. One of them happens to be in Israel, and it's almost like it's sort of a they have like you take the cart around the warehouse and pull what you want, and we'll put it on your tab type of situation. $4 billion worth of weaponry stored there, and Israel has a carte blanche to go in and take what they need. And so
more broadly, you think about that in the context of arguing about a supplemental amount of money to fund.
It's a supplement to the
operations.
Supplements is really what it is.
I mean, I think it's, more broadly, I think it's a way to hook in Congress onto a policy that otherwise the White House can do themselves. I mean, it is maddening to me that we are giving almost $1 trillion to the Pentagon, and then we need more.
And so you're suggesting that the supplemental acts not just as like the material benefits, but it is a sort of like a political commitment that they're making that forces them into that, and it's just sort of like put in that context of it being like an existential vote as opposed to a one that sort of says we're behind this policy.
I think that's true, and Pentagon accounting, who even knows what people have and where, but I do think there's an element of that to it, and so it's not that I'm skeptical that in the absence of a supplemental, Ukraine really might have a dwindling supply of ammunition. I mean, that could be true, but at the same time, federal law was circumvented to give Israel what they needed. Right. So, where are we?
All right. Well, let's move on to one more. Well, I get a couple more things I wanted to talk to you about, but the stock market apparently went bonkers yesterday because the Fed indicated that that they may be looking at rate cuts in 2024, and maybe a coincidence that you had written just days ago that they should be looking at rate cuts? I don't know.
I think
You tell me.
It's absolutely a coincidence. Well, no, I mean,
Are you suggesting what? No.
I think it's data driven. I
Right.
mean, we have very successfully seen inflation drop to basically the level that the Fed wants. I mean, if you look at 6-month, their favorite measure, which is personal consumption expenditures, you look at the last 6 months and it's at 2%. 2% is sort of this target for inflation. So, and I don't want to raise my hands in victory to the Federal Reserve for doing that. It was very clearly, and we're seeing more evidence of this day after day, very clearly about supply chain easing.
100%.
And so what we have now is the Fed having raised rates for over a year. The inflation has come down. The Fed rates are doing damage. I mean, we may not see it yet in the unemployment statistics, but we certainly are seeing it in housing starts. We're seeing it in research and development, which dropped in the third quarter of the year. We're seeing it in
Rising rents.
Rising rents, delayed production of factories, delayed production of a lot of these new energy things, which are front loaded in terms of the capital costs that you have. And if those capital costs go up, so the impact of interest rates is real, and it's long lasting too, because right now a lot of people haven't moved because if they move and they have to get another, I'm talking about homeowners right now.
Yep.
If they have to get another home, their mortgage rate will rise significantly. But eventually people do move or they do sell their homes. And so the impact of those rates will only grow in the future. It's the same with corporate loans. As they roll over, the rates get higher. These things only get worse over time. And so, I talked to some folks at Employ America, which has been making this case for significant rate reductions in 2024. If you want to credit anyone for what the Fed did, it'd be Employ America more than me. But their points were unemployment problems happen suddenly, and once we're in the middle of them, it's hard to get them to stop. So that's number one. Number two is be consistent. When inflation went up a bit, you raised rates. Now that it's come down, be consistent. That speaks to credibility and how business participants can handle it. And then three, what I was talking about the long-term impact of high interest rates.
The best way to describe this, I was trying to explain this to my kid, is like in terms of like how these rates can have an impact. It's like when you're in the shower and you get in and it feels a little bit cold, and so you push the thing down to hot. But the hot water takes a little bit to get through the system. All the cold water's got to push out, and then all of a sudden you're there, and that's when you get scalded. And that is, I think, like the fear here is that this is all building up. It was largely unnecessary because of these the inflation issues being largely a function of, I mean, certainly between supply chain and profiteering, and then just some coincidental
and the war
in terms of oil prices. And some coincidental things like, the bird flu for the chickens and some other issues. All those things sort of conspired, and the fact that we had a pandemic that also changed consumption habits slightly for a period of time that are slowly returning back to sort of some type of baseline. I think the rental stuff and being locked into the housing that people have at this point, they hold off on that other kid because they can't get into a bigger apartment or a bigger house. People can't go in and get their first houses. You have building starts. All of that stuff is conspired.
And so if the Fed actually does do what they say they're going to do and start bringing rates down, I mean, you could get a virtuous circle going where suddenly it's better to invest. Investment happens because it's buffeted by the Inflation Reduction Act. Instead of us offsetting that by high interest rates, we're now playing into it. And with the various public investment available, we'll see more factories being built. That's more jobs. If inflation stays moderate and people sort of get accustomed to this price level while wages continue to rise, you could see, good things happening in 2024.
It's going to be interesting to see how that impacts the perspective on the economy. I mean, I think there's other factors, but I think housing is a huge part, and repayments of student debt and all of those things all play into this.
Speaking of housing, I just saw a headline that homelessness is up 12% to its highest level since reporting began in 2007, according to the Associated Press. So, these numbers about the economy, that we need to be starting to calculate housing into the way that people are necessarily feeling the effects of that economy.
I mean, we seem to realize that when uninsurance premiums were unaffordable, that you'd have a higher rate of uninsured. When housing costs are very high, you have a higher rate of homeless people.
Let's lastly just talk a little bit about Google. We spoke to Luke Goldstein earlier in the week on the really big case with Google that the U.S. government is bringing in terms of their search, their monopoly over search.
Right.
But there was another case that had, I think, just been decided, or at least we reported on just moments before Luke was actually on. I think it was on Wednesday, or maybe it was Tuesday. That was a suit that was not brought by the U.S. government, but was rather brought by a gaming company that offered its game on the Google platform for apps. And they won. What are the implications of that case?
Huge implications. First of all, this is the first antitrust case that Google or really any big tech company has lost. And it was lost through a jury trial, unanimous verdict on all counts. So just that alone, that perception of that alone, that Google has been labeled a monopolist in a court of law is very important. Now let's get to the specifics of the case.
But why?
Why is that important?
Yeah.
Because it pierces the sort of impregnable nature of these companies that say that they're following the law in all respects. Google has 6, or I don't know exactly how many, but a number of other trials going on at the same time. Now, after the precedent is set that Google is a monopolist in this one aspect, it's harder for the judge in the search case to dismiss all of the information that he saw in that trial and say, no, Google's not a monopolist.
And we should say that one of the things that Luke told us was this judge isn't necessarily the thing with antitrust in this country is that the laws have not changed, but for a 40-year period, the perspective on how you apply the law and what the sort of inputs are, the way you perceive the inputs into that law changed. And so a judge sitting there on the federal bench comes out of that milieu, if you will, of perception about what constitutes antitrust violations, and to see that the context has changed, not just because Lena Khan is at the FTC or Jonathan Cantor's at the DOJ, but even in the context of the way the public perceives what monopoly is going to impact their decision making. But when was the last time we saw a company of Google size be charged with being a monopolizer? And we should say this again. What are the implications of it being brought by a private party as opposed to some wild-eyed political ideologue in some agency?
Well, it shows that private litigation is an important part of the antitrust laws in this country. I mean, the Sherman Antitrust Act specifically allowed for a private right of action because they thought, well, maybe the forces in government will be captured, or maybe they just won't have enough resources. So we need a million eyes rather than one pair of eyes. So it just shows the importance of that. The case itself also has some similarities to what's going on at the Google search trial in DC. So Epic Games, which owns Fortnite, is who brought this case, and they operate when they're on Android phones. I have an Android phone right here. The only way that you can get an app on an Android phone is to go through the Google Play Store. That's the only way. You cannot get an app any other way. And because of that, Google charges for any in-app purchase. If you're buying something like in a game, sometimes you have to buy a new weapon, or you buy some aspect of the game. Google charges a 30% toll on all revenue that's from an app because they can, because that's the price you pay for access to Google's customers on the Android phone. And it was described at trial that Google discouraged other companies by paying them off to not develop other app stores. Now, this is very analogous to what's happening in the Google search trial, where Google paid for access to be the exclusive search engine on browsers and mobile devices. So there's a pretty similar relationship going on here. When Fortnite, when Epic Games tried to encourage people to not use the app but to pay them separately for the game and do it on a browser, Google, the Play Store, kicked Epic Games off of their app store. So this is and this was shown in the trial to be an exercise of market power to harm competition, to harm other companies, and to ultimately harm the consumer experience. And so a lot of those things are applicable to the other trials that Google is involved in right now.
What happened with the Apple case that didn't Epic bring an Apple case as well? Like, I mean,
Epic did bring a case against Apple. It ended with Apple at an appeals court level from a judge, not a jury, and we can talk about that. But the judge said that Apple was not a monopolist, essentially, on all counts but one, and that case is under appeal right now. Epic is appealing it potentially to the Supreme Court. But that's an interesting difference, though, right? You have judges who are steeped sort of in this milieu, as you talked about, of antitrust law over the last 40 years. And then you have ordinary people who are faced with the situation that I just described and said, yeah, Google's a monopolist, clearly. You can't get any other apps on an Android phone other than going through this one gatekeeper. It's intuitive. And so I think the importance of using juries here is also
two things. One, Big Beef on our IM says Google Play Store users can enable side loading apps, including other apps.
There is side loading, but then they try to discourage other companies from developing app stores, and B, they try to crack down on side loading and crack down. I mean, this is essentially what Epic Games was trying to do, and they kicked them off the app store. So the fact is that most people aren't going to do that. I mean, as much as you think.
No, right.
Yes,
like, I mean, that's the other parallel too with the default browser.
Right, you can change the default.
You can change it, but it's 4 clicks.
Aren't going to do that.
And Google knows the value of being the default browser. That's why they spend billions of dollars on doing it.
Just as they know that there's value in being the default app store.
Can you?
Is this going to be appealed? I mean, if the Apple decision,
it's likely to have an appeal. Right now, what happened is the jury found guilty on all counts, and now they move to a remedy phase. And at the remedy phase, it's actually the judge's discretion to say, well, how do we fix this? They could allow for multiple app stores. They could say, Google, you can't take a cut from these other companies on in-app purchases. They could break up, sever Google's Play Store from the parent company. I mean, there's a number of things they could do.
Do you know how Epic Games was able to get a jury trial for this? Did they specifically request it?
Yeah, I believe they did. And the interesting thing is that it wasn't Epic Games was among several app developers that tried to sue Google over this conduct. And what Google did is it paid off the other litigants in the trial, and the plaintiffs settled all those cases, except for Epic Games. They were the only ones that said, no, we want to see this through, and we want to fix this ecosystem.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
David Dayen, we will see you on Monday, I guess, at like 2:35, I think it's going to be, right after our show. We're going to hop
right
on
after the show.
Your telethon, your Jerry
And let me
Lewis
just
telethon.
say, we're doing that, yes, and we're doing it all day from 12 to 8 Eastern. It's going to be live on YouTube at our YouTube channel, at the American Prospects YouTube channel. You'll also find it at prospect.org. You'll find it on our Twitter feed at The Prospect. And while you're there, we will give you all the information you need on how to donate. Any dollar amount you want, $1, $2. I mean, we appreciate so much the support of our readers. And
are you going to be doing this from a studio? Is it going to be from? Are you going to be on that couch?
I'm going to be here. Others are going to be elsewhere. This is all from beaming in from across the country.
No backdrop.
Nope.
It's just going to be that.
Well, there's going to be like a little graphic on the screen for how to donate and stuff, but that's about it.
Okay. All right. Well,
we don't all have the unlimited resources of a studio.
Oh yeah, this stuff is like you can't
That's
just
made out of granite, and I think that's neat.
Yes, people don't realize we've
can really
chiseled
tell the value.
Yeah, exactly.
When you're looking at it at home.
Exactly. Yes. Just hope that people just have not visited an IKEA store. That's the key with our backdrop. David Dayen, always a pleasure, and looking forward to Monday.
All right. See you Monday. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
All right, folks. We're gonna take a break and head into the fun half of the program. Just a reminder, it is your support that makes this show possible. When you become a member, you not only get the free show free of commercials, but you also get the fun half. And it really is your support that makes this show possible. You get we get ads. There's always an ebb and flow as to whether those ads are happening. Don't like to rely on YouTube revenue or any one place. We're doing okay on YouTube, but it is the members that really give us the independence and allow us to do, sometimes drier stuff than a lot of other shows, but I think that it's really interesting and informative, and that's what we try and do on a daily basis here. So if you enjoy the show,
some shows like to grow in fits and spurts by having like appearing on Tucker Carlson's show or having Tulsi Gabbard on, but our show likes to slowly accrue listeners.
Slow but sure,
Get into your
very
bloodstream.
slow, exactly. Join the majority-report.com. Also, don't forget, what a great Christmas gift the merch at shop.majorityreportradio.com would make.
I mean, come on, folks. You got a whoopsie shirt there now. You got a every day of the week calendar shirt. Monday fun day.
Oh, yeah. All of it's in
Tuesday,
there.
Tuesday.
So much fun. Also, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, tea, or coffee.
Knew you were gonna
coffee.
start it.
Yeah.
Fair trade coffee. And get the Majority Report blend. That's also a great gift. Justcoffee.coop. And it's a good deal. You go pay $5 for a coffee at like your local coffee store, or you can get like, I don't know how many cups of coffee you get out of like a pound bag or
Right.
of coffee, but many, and it's high quality coffee. So check it out. Justcoffee.coop. Where is Jessica? What did you think of Tucker Carlson's interview with Dave Grush? Who's Dave Grush?
I have no idea.
I think he's the UFO guy.
Oh, nothing. I didn't see it.
Yeah, I did skip it.
Yeah.
Emma. Mm-hmm. ESPN.
Yeah, so yesterday Bradley and I did our locks against the spread, but you can also check out our coverage on Monday where we went deep into the offsides call against the Chiefs, the meltdown by Mahomes. We also spoke a little bit of labor stuff about the surfaces in the NFL. On Monday, we're going to tee off on Brandon Staley because I just saw that he got fired. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
The Dave Grush thing, like...
I don't understand.
I hear so many UFO
stuff.
people be like, well, there's actually like official government people. Yeah, the spokesperson for the United States is saying like Israel doesn't do war crimes, despite us seeing like that in HD every day. Like
people just want to believe it, and it's relatively harmless.
But why? Listen, here's my point is like like what are the implications here?
Exactly.
I mean, the implications are big. If there are actually beings from another planet that exist.
And they're visiting us.
Is there any doubt to me that the U.S. government is keeping secrets about stuff that they find? No, I'm sure they are. But like the politics of this, I'm not quite sure what are relevant. Honestly, it's
a conspiracy that doesn't challenge anything meaningfully powerful in our government, and also probably serves to kind of shift some focus about weapons and things we test that might be unexplainable to the
yes. I'm interested, and if we're at a bar and you want to show me a video of this, and I've had a couple of drinks and I'm not arguing with someone about something else that I think is relevant, I will watch it and be interested. But like in terms of like what we do here, I just don't understand the why people think that this is something that we would address. I think like there was one instance where people were up in arms about this, and to the extent that it's relevant here, it's only when it gets like, politicized. And so much of it, I think, is like, this is the thing. I think like, I saw Schumer was talking about a speech, like he had some bipartisan, and like, it's so cynical because Chuck Schumer doesn't give a goddamn crap. It just knows like this is something that's going to like hook in some voters, and if it works in that respect, and it can get voters to vote for a politician or a party that I think is more likely to get like health care for people or whatever it is, then okay, fine. But beyond that,
but that's not what's happening. I mean, I'm like, I just watched that documentary about the cult Love Has Won on HBO, and it's a wellness like cult essentially. The woman died of like basically cirrhosis of the liver or alcoholism, I think, and she was taking all this colloidal silver. She turned blue. People can look it up. But the whole cult is like, they're all hippies, right? And they're this wellness people. And during COVID, they just all started to kind of like accelerate their perspective on that. And they all move out there and you're like, okay, they could be hippies. They could be left wing. And then they start to talk about their views. They're seeing UFOs every night. They believe in QAnon. They have like a vision board with Trump on it. And you're like, okay, this is just like anti-society stuff. And that's why Tucker's interested in it, because the anti-vaxxers are also interested in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be interested when like one of these things buzzes a city and people see it live, or there's a major break. Like if we've been having these crafts within our possession and like looking into them, and we haven't figured out some sort of way to do free energy or something, like I think I'm not that interested. But yeah, when it starts affecting my life, as opposed to like in a way greater than me having to watch a congressional hearing with some spook, then I'll pay attention more. But anyway, patreon.com/Left Reckoning. Sorry, Aina Muhammad talking about Brett Weinstein, Dave Rubin, and how they got religion now. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
Folks, see you in the fun half.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow.
What? What is that going on?
It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it.
Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking
Oh,
for
wow.
a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is it?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello? Is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single frickin' day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Who libertarians? They're so stupid though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-35 501 1 half 3 8
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6 5 4 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about
Yeah.
you is just like every day, all day, like
Yeah.
everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
Oh, yeah, we could talk about that if you want. Hi. We're back.
We're back. We will take some phone calls maybe if we get a chance. Kid tested Politburo proved the best possible scenario for Sam is the aliens are libertarians. Then we get the Martian report and possibly the first interspecies relationship.
Those might be
Libertarians could not travel across space.
but
It's
those
not
would
going to happen.
be the only illegal aliens that the Republicans would like.
Matthew of Philadelphia. Is New York a one-party consent state? MR should give Fetterman's office a call about Israel and him fraudulently running as a progressive and now saying he isn't one. I got right through. 215-241-1090. I don't know if it is a one-party state. I don't think it is. But
Well, so I mean, it's insane that he's saying the quote, I am not a progressive. EC, who used to work for Ilhan Omar's campaign, just did a whole thread of like, I mean, how many times he referred to himself as a progressive. This is a different one than I was referring to, but he might have quote tweeted himself here. Like, just the amount of times he called himself a progressive as he ran. He's just lying. A progressive. Go next one. These are all his ads. Comparing himself to Bernie. Keep going.
Retweet if you're standing with these progressive champions.
Progressive champions.
2009, progressive rhetoric is great, but progressive results are 100.
And no, he posted that in 2018, but that was an old article. Yeah, right. We have started a progressive movement here in Pennsylvania. Like, and then there's, we made the point, but EC just kept collecting all of the times. All you have to do is search at John Fetterman progressive, and you'll be able to find all of his tweets calling himself such. It really is.
Cinema.
It's bizarre. Yeah.
He's bad dressed in cinema.
Which is really,
really
disappointing.
Outside of his Israel policy, has his policy, do you think, changed, or is he just trying to brand himself?
I think the border stuff recently is like, okay, because like when he was running, he's like, was he married to someone who was undocumented, and I'm super like concerned about that sort of stuff. And now it's, we gotta actually like talk to Republicans about this.
What's also disturbing about it, it feels like, is that he's 5 years out from an election. I mean, this isn't like him tacking in, for.
Or he's building up so much goodwill now with like the bigger donors in Pennsylvania that potentially he feels like he can just bank it and then move forward. But I find the calculation to be bizarre. I don't understand why you would get elected with the wind at your back of like a young movement and the future of the party being tied to you, and then make this incredible pivot so aggressively. It's one thing, again, for him to be so aggressively pro-Israel, but to eschew the progressive label at this point, at least it's clarifying. Now that he's in power, now that he duped everybody. And I guess we can color that incident where he, chased a black man down the street with a gun a little bit differently now.
I certainly do.
I feel ashamed that I fell for his rhetoric.
Yeah, I mean, look, a lot of people like Bronco, I think Nathan Robinson had pointed out, or Ben Burgess also said, he's progressive except for Palestine. Some of this stuff was known, and like the weird racial incident was something that I think, like, definitely, like the way he's acted as a senator, it throws it into a different relief.
Well, left is lawn guy land says John Fetterman's body double is going wild. I reserve judgment on whether Fetterman is the next cinema. Like, I am less concerned with him describing what his policies are than actually like where he votes. Frankly, is I mean, the Israel stuff I think is horrible. I don't know what.
But then this like let's hear out Republicans thing, if that becomes like a regular part of his tune,
it's a problem.
And it's not like he was quoted offhandedly. He did an interview specifically with Sahil Kapoor of NBC News in order to make it known that this is
his position. Yeah.
Quote. I mean, the title is "Fetterman Breaks with the Left, Showing a Maverick Side."
Oh God.
So, to Matt's point about cinema, we'll need more data, obviously, but I don't think that that's a crazy thing to say that that's how he's pivoting to. It seems like that's how he wants to brand himself now.
Well, let's have some fun, shall we? Should we do this first guy?
Yes.
Which one?
This is my favorite.
Okay. And really, like the who was it that posted this on Twitter?
So this guy, I wrote it down here. The interviewer here in the "My pronouns are fine Jesus" T-shirt is a pro-Trump MAGA guy, self-described debate lord. He's a TikToker named Shaney Rich, and he went viral for the wrong reasons here.
But the other person who posted on Twitter was really funny about the whole thing.
Christy Yamaguchi, man.
Yeah. I don't know who that is, but they really said that, like, this TikTok guy walked into a buzzsaw of somebody who was far more savvy about the internet sort of debate culture, and
a samurai.
This is pretty funny. I mean, there's not much to be learned here other than, folks, if Steven Crowder comes to your campus, like this guy, it's like clearly, this is where he thought. But you are not obligated to engage in some of these people's stupid Sean Hannity style binary choice and laying of the groundwork or the confines of a debate.
LGBTQ rights or economic stability?
Why can't you have both?
You need to pick one.
I refuse the question.
You can't refuse the question.
I do.
But you can't.
But I did.
But you need to pick one.
No, I don't.
I just said you did.
So what?
Can you pick one?
No, because they're both doable.
No. Only one.
I don't have to pick one because you can have both.
But the answer is both is not an answer. It's not a valid answer.
I reject your question.
You can't reject it.
I just did.
Can you pick one?
I don't have to.
Why?
Because they're both completely doable.
So LGBTQ rights or economic stability?
Both.
That's not an answer.
Yes, it is.
LGBTQ rights or economic stability?
Both.
Are you trying to troll me?
No.
I'm just wondering which one you like more.
I like them both.
You can't have both.
Yes, you can.
Not in this question.
Too bad.
Why are you trolling me right now?
Because I don't have to choose.
All right, what if I had to ask you gender inclusivity or economic stability?
You can have both.
You can't. Why you make this so difficult? I'm trying to pass my final.
Too bad.
Which one do you pick?
I pick them both.
But that's not a valid answer.
Too bad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's so awesome. I mean, first off, it's a ridiculous question. The idea that you can't have gender inclusivity and economic stability. First off, what does economic stability even mean in this context? Right. It's just the dumbest question, and that guy handled it so beautifully.
Yeah.
Plus, the TikTok guy was lying. Like, this is for my finals.
Well, I know.
That's my favorite part because it's like
when he gets desperate
own it.
and he whines. Yeah.
What class are you taking where your finals you can't handle with someone not like you should be flunked in your finals just for asking that dumb question.
He's getting desperate because he wants his viral moment, and I like how whoever edited together, this is from that guy's account, tried to salvage it by mocking him for playing with his zippers and zooming in on that, when the guy just comes out looking like a total Chad.
Yeah, and like I went to masters for humanities, so I'll just tell that kid when you are recording the details of your field and research. Have a section that is, for people who say economic rights, people who say LGBT rights or whatever, and also a section for people who reject.
Right.
Like say both. That's actually just fundamental research methods.
Yeah.
But the idea, I mean, first of all, I don't know what economic stability means. For the individual, for society, you can't have economic stability if you have inclusivity in society. It's just absurd.
It means the Marvels will make more at the box office. That's what the number one indicator of economic stability in a society is.
Even if I was to accept the Tim Pool assessment of filmmaking, why is society more economically stable if a movie does well? What did they not understand what I mean? In the most sort of broadest sense of economic stability, what does that mean? Like if you have economic if you have LGBTQ rights, then we're going to destabilize the economy?
Well, it's just like another version of allowing for gay people and trans people to
exist. Go broke. What do you not understand?
Yeah, it destabilizes civilization to such a degree that everything's going to fall apart and people will disengage from the economy.
But if the money's not spent on the Marvel movie, we don't need Marvel movies to do well for the economy to sustain itself.
You say that now, but we talk about a slippery slope here, and it's just the first indicator. It's the canary in the coal
Also,
mine.
what are the rules of women in the workplace? I think that might be a little bit of it too. Is feminism has led to men not having the wage sort of premium that they had gotten, maybe in the early 20th century. I don't know.
It is a dumb question. I think the guy would buy the guy even saying both was giving the questioner more credit than he deserved.
Yeah, exactly. You should be defined terms. Shani Rich, if you want to ask Sam and Emma about this.
Oh, call in anytime for your thesis, for your finals.
For your finals, we'll help you.
Oh, yeah.
We'll help you get a good grade.
This was 8 minutes ago, breaking from the Associated Press. The Israeli military says it mistakenly killed 3 Israeli hostages in Gaza. They're admitting to that number. I'm just like, what does it take for them to admit it at this point? It must be so brazenly obvious that they were the ones that did it. Anyway.
Let's play this clip of a guy who is from the West Bank city of Jenin, Ahmed Tabasi. My understanding is from Mark Goldberg, who does a podcast. I can't remember the name of it at the moment, but it's on. It is on Foreign Affairs, and apparently the head of the ICC has visited Israel and the West Bank. Now, Israel is not subscribed to the International Criminal Court, but Palestine does. And I think Israel's issue is that, well, how can Palestine subscribe to the International Criminal Court if they're not a nation? Of course, that also begs the question of, like, well, then who are you at war with?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a civil war that you're waging? Like, who are you at war with? And
as they say, people in Palestinians don't want Israel to have a right to exist as a country, but it's inherent in it is that Palestinians don't have a country.
So, Democracy Now! Spoke with Ahmed Tabasi, and he is in the West Bank, and this is pretty nefarious stuff. He runs something called the Freedom Theater in occupied West Bank. In Jenin, and it involves teaching kids theater, and they have such nefarious things like books there and video recordings and stuff like that. And apparently, the IDF came in, ransacked the place. He knew that they were coming door to door, so he was there waiting for them. And basically saying, look, we got nothing in here. Come in. I'm happy to cooperate with you. And they just ransacked the place and arrested this guy. Here's you should see the whole interview, but we'll play a couple of minutes.
Yeah, he was detained for 24 hours, and he describes his experience.
And now.
There is no words, actually. I could not find words to describe the pain, the sword that we have. As a Palestinian, and especially the people in Jenin and Jenin camp. I'm sitting in the middle of my office and Mustafa's office, and for me, it's just like everything is destroyed, and you see all this mess, and I don't know why. It's because this is theater. It's not a military base. It's not a terrorist house. It's not an armed place, or there is no guns. There is books, pictures, cameras, music instruments. All of it being destroyed. The whole theater being like all computers, all offices being destroyed, and they've been rotting and writing and drawing Hebrew things all around. And it just before yesterday, I was actually in my house, which is in front of the Freedom Theater. And I know I was waiting. They're going to come to check us in the house because they're going house to house. They're arresting everyone from like 13 to 60, 50 years old. And I was hearing them. They're coming to my house because they're going house by house. And then they just broke the door of my house and just went out to them and told them, please, there is children here. We are a whole family here, and we can do whatever you want. There is no need for violence. There is no need to do anything. But quickly, they put the guns on me. They took me, put me down, and they start to beat me. And I don't know why. I was telling them, like, I have a Norwegian passport. I'm a Norwegian citizenship, but they didn't care. They stormed in. They broke all the house. They broke everything, any electronic stuff, any glass, and they took my brother too. The children were screaming, crying, and even they were screaming on them. And because I understand a little Hebrew, they were swearing at the children. They were screaming at my mom and dad, which was old people. And then they start to beat me, and then they handcuffed me, and they took me, and they put some even like army clothes in me, and they start to take pictures of me, taking poses soldier by soldier to show their girlfriends they are heroes. But while I was under arrest, under the guns, and they were taking these pictures for me. And then they put me in a truck. They took me to Al Jarama checkpoint, and they throw me in the mud. It was raining. They throw me beside the street where all the jeeps, the vehicles, army go around me, and I don't understand what is going on. Are they gonna drive on me? Are they gonna kill me? I don't know what is going on because I was blindfolded. And then they put me in another truck, and they took me to other place where they throw us again outside, start to do like an immediate interrogation about my identity, and they intelligence, but it's outside intelligence in the rain. They didn't let me even take my shoes or clothes to cover myself. It's December, it's very cold with the rain, and it was a torture in somehow, psychologically torture, mentally torture, that all the time the soldiers go around you, their guns touching you, and you just waiting the moment when they're gonna shoot you. Are they gonna drive on you? Are they gonna smash you? And they take you from place to place, makes you walk that you don't know without shoes, with the mud. So it was a whole crazy. I cannot describe. This is happening for me. It takes me directly to 2002 when I was 17 years old. It's exactly the same thing happening. The Israelis have the machine time to bring you back 20 years just with one button, with one invasion. And for me, I am wondering how long this is going to happen again and again in the same way. And still the whole world looking, and they cannot do anything. For us, we as a Palestinian.
There's more. You should check this out at Democracy Now! But a reminder, this is in the West Bank, where there is no Hamas. Impossible to, this is just wholesale intimidation and oppression
and erasure. I mean, when they go for cultural centers and so the Zionist project has been aided by pretending like Palestinians had no culture before this. And you know what's a good way to keep that narrative going is to target centers of culture like theaters and libraries and universities.
And kids. I mean, it's appalling. It's just appalling. And note, I think what he said there is that they tried to put him in military garb to make it look like, and so when you look at these photos of very hard to trust the numbers, even though the Israelis were bragging that the Israeli Defense Forces were bragging that they were killing one Hamas fighter for every 2 civilians. Very hard to trust that number. And remember, that's on the outside, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's far more likely that they're killing more than 2 civilians per Hamas fighter. And we know these numbers. And not to mention, was 98,000 buildings in Gaza destroyed? This is just a wholesale ethnic cleansing. And people get caught up on whether it's the term genocide is accurate or not. There's certainly experts who have weighed in and said that it is. I'm sure there are some that say that it isn't. But that's all just a way of somehow trying to make it it's only ethnic cleansing. I mean, there's absolutely no controversy over the idea that this is ethnic cleansing, that this is full-on oppression and whatnot. The idea that to get hung up on the word genocide because, you're not killing all the Palestinians. You're not threatening the existence of all Palestinians because in the West Bank, there isn't the wholesale slaughter that there is in Gaza, although we've seen nearly 300 people killed in the West Bank since just over the past couple of months. But the bottom line is these are war crimes. They are in many respects crimes against humanity. None of this is even remotely controversial to say. There's just simply there is no international law justification for what we're seeing here.
Brett Stevens had the point, which I thought is just so silly. Like, if they wanted to commit genocide, they would. I mean, foreign relations exist. Like, yeah, like if there was no other countries and Israel was the only piece of land on this entire planet surrounded by ocean, I think, and somehow they had like just for this experiment, yeah, I think they probably would be doing even more. But they're doing it under the guise of anti-terrorism now because that's what they can get away with, and still have Joe Biden and Ted Cruz say like they're actually the most careful military on earth.
Right. I mean, it is quite clear that the Israeli government wants to push every single Palestinian out of Gaza into Egypt. So the idea, but the only thing, and to some extent, they're attempting to do that, but there are constraints. There are constraints. And because presumably it would be absurd for them to assume that there is no line in which they couldn't cross where the American public would put pressure on Joe Biden. They certainly think they have a lot of room. And as long as they can continue to justify it, as long as they can continue to try and justify it, I'm sure to a certain extent, some of them are shocked at how much they're being able to sort of get away with before there's even talk of restricting their access to weapons. It's really... it's just a horror show.
And and they also rely so heavily on like that kind of semantics by someone like Brett Stevens, because like
pedantry.
But it's pedantry, but also because of the plausible deniability of bombs, because of the distance between who's dropping the bomb and where the bomb gets dropped. And that's why the Israeli military is having to admit that they killed those 3 hostages in Gaza because it was done by ground troops, and there's no plausible deniability that they had mistakenly identified them. But in terms of like the hostages that have been held by Hamas, I have no doubt that some of them have died because of the indiscriminate bombing, the record-breaking number of bombs dropped. But in the end, they'll just blame it on Hamas's barbarity. And they're hoping that that kind of cognitive dissonance allows them to continue doing whatever the hell they want, like when appealing to an American audience.
All right, let's switch.
Do this, Dave Rubin?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, folks, we've done a lot of videos about Dave Rubin over the years, and one of the sort of category errors that people who criticize us about doing these videos is that we just do it to make fun of Dave Rubin. And I would say that's probably true 15% of the time. If we've done 1,000 videos on Dave Rubin, I don't think we've done that many. But if we've done 1,000 videos, I would say 150 of them would be just to make fun of Dave Rubin, because it's hilarious to come across someone who is so stupid. But the other 85% are because his stupidity gives us a good opportunity to go over the stupid ideas that he's talking about.
Well, that's the nice thing about Rubin, is he's so dumb that even in those 15% of chances where you are just want to, make fun of him and ridicule him, he's often stumbled upon something that's illustrative and able to be used as an example.
I mean, and that's the whole point of when we do videos on all of these sort of YouTube type of people. I mean, there are times where, yes, we will make fun of Tim Pool because he's Tim Pool, but it's really more we're trying to shoot down the ideas that he's espousing. Maybe our titling will be a little bit more titillating, but, every spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down.
And also, we don't know Tim Pool or Dave Rubin any kind of respect.
Exactly.
I think that is...
It would actually be malpractice if we did show them respect.
If we did show them respect.
Right.
But that's what they desperately want in terms of the nature of why they mock the fact that we mock them.
Now, we should say that the flat tax became popular, and I'm trying to remember what year it was that Steve Forbes ran. He's one of the Forbes family. Forbes family, one of the wealthiest families in the country. I don't remember when Steve Forbes landed, but I believe it was like in the aughts. I can't remember. And his whole idea is that we should simplify the tax code by having one tax, a flat tax that is presumably on, and it's unclear, different people have different proposals. Should this just be on income? Should we include that with capital gains? And the point about a flat tax is that it is regressive. And why is that? Because if I am not making, if I'm making $20,000 a year, the idea of paying that tax is going to be far harsher on me than if I'm making $20 million a year, because necessities cost something in this capitalist society. There's not much elasticity as to whether I need to have food, whether I need to have shelter, whether I need to have transportation to get to work, healthcare. There's not much elasticity. I could be rich, and it's not going to cost me any less to have these basic necessities. A rich man buys one loaf of bread at a time, but also, a poor man should be able to buy one loaf of bread at a time. And so a flat tax is regressive in that way.
It's just simple proportions. It's simple percentages.
But here is Dave Rubin purporting to support a flat tax. And even he realizes a flat tax is a bad idea. So his flat tax is actually like a marginal tax rate system, except for just with less margins. And what's amazing about this is the guy who, remember, for a long time was saying, I'm a liberal. I want a single payer healthcare, but I just want to shrink government. Now, single payer healthcare would be the single biggest expansion of government insofar as its role within our economy that we've had in ages. And then when someone called him out on that, he basically decided to jettison the whole single payer healthcare. But my point here is that A, the flat tax is bad, and B, Dave Rubin has no idea what he's talking about. It's just a glib position. And he doesn't even listen to this.
I'm a big flat tax guy. I wrote about a flat tax in Don't Burn This Book. Like, to me, it doesn't matter exactly what the percentage is, but to me, it would be like if you could basically, if everybody had, let's say, 15% flat tax, and then
pause it. Now, just think about the idea. I'm a big flat tax guy. I wrote about it in my book. It doesn't matter what the percentage is.
That's probably the biggest thing you should probably zero in on, buddy.
It doesn't matter.
1%, 90%, who cares?
Because I'm just pulling this out of my ass anyways, and just going on the number that I've seen floated, and I haven't done any research or even know why I'm proposing a flat tax. But go ahead.
If everybody had, let's say, 15% flat tax, and then to just throw the progressives a bone, to throw the left a bone, just so that they could maybe get on board, although I know they never will.
Yeah.
I think you could say, all right, if you make under 50, you don't get taxed at all. And if you make over, I don't know, $2 million, we could pick what the number is, a year, you could have a slight progressively increased version of that, 17, 18%, something like that. But basically so that 99% of people will pay the exact same percentage. To me, that's the only way.
Now, here's this guy who's written about it in his book, The Flat Tax. And he's willing to throw some bones. So if you make under $50,000 or above $2 million, we'll throw the progressive bone. You don't have to pay anything under $50,000. And over $2 million, we can, raise the marginal rate a little bit. But he wants to get, what did he say, 99%?
Yeah.
Just 99% of people.
Let's do Dave Rubin a favor for the next interview that he does with somebody who knows nothing about what he's even talking about. Put up this graph of the income distribution in this country to see if 99% of the people, excluding those who make $2 million, make over $50,000. And you will see that, no, that's the tax brackets, the other one. you will see that the income distribution in this country, at least in 2022, you have about 25%, 14, 25, 32% of the people make less than $50,000. And that's households, not even individuals. That's households. So if you want to, he's just throwing around numbers because it just sounds like it's something he can say. This is a guy who claims to have written about the flat tax.
Also in the book, Don't Burn This Book, which is ostensibly about censorship. Why are you writing about flat taxes?
Just because he's throwing in stuff because he heard the word flat tax. Now, and then, of course, his flat tax will have margins above and beyond, above $2 million, because he wants to get 99% of people. It's so absurd that he gets away with being this stupid about his policies, just saying the word. And incidentally, here are the marginal tax rates. His plan would lower tax rates for about, like we said, about 35% under 50,000. This is rough. Okay, households. His tax rates, and these are the tax brackets, his 15 or 18% would lower the marginal tax rates for something like 65% of the people and raise it, although he's going to excuse those people. So how does he presume, like, what is even the point at that point?
A massive tax cut.
Oh, that's it. And that's good because why?
You can fit it on an index card, right?
Yep.
No more complicated tax bracket. Wasn't that the Republican Paul Ryan pitch? You can make it super, super simple, the tax code.
That was supposedly what it was going to be, but it didn't work that way. He won't speak in terms of like effective tax rate either. I mean, if that's really what you want, right? Like, but nevertheless, it's just all this sort of glibness that means nothing.
Well, and one thing that this does is it puts, passive income and investment income into the same boat as labor income, which I find a big problem. I think that sort of stuff, like, capital gains, that sort of stuff, that should be taxed much higher than people who actually do something to work for a living.
And to be clear, not only do we tax working labor much more so than just using your money to make more money, but even what constitutes capital gains in this country is completely blinkered, because the whole theory was like, well, we want to encourage investment because that's going to create jobs. But so much of what constitutes capital gains is like creating jobs, in the same way that gambling does. And even gambling, at least you have to have a casino and you hire people. In these instances, so much of this is just simply about gambling and riding the back of investments that have no real meaning in the economy except for the money that is made by the people who do this gambling, and they'll go out and spend on luxury items.
And politicians.
Yes.
Go a little bit more. This is, by the way, Lauren Southern, who I haven't heard from in a while, but she was that famous sort of Canadian alt-right person who was Stefan
Oh, is that who
Molyneux.
this is?
Yeah, Stefan Molyneux aligned. Tenet Media is apparently their new sort of like, well, it's a heterodox outfit that focuses on Western culture.
On ideas.
If you were truly heterodox, wouldn't you maybe get some Eastern and Middle Eastern representatives? Or just going to stay heterodox in the West? But
No. You know what he means by heterodox.
By heterodox, we mean promoting the homogeny.
18%, something like that. But basically so that 99% of people will pay the exact same percentage. To me, that's the only way to do it fair. I don't think a progressive tax or letting some people out is moral or right, but that would be purely like politics on how to get some other people on board. But like, I feel like the flat tax, everyone makes fun of it, but it's just the way to do it if you think that the government has any right to take any of our money.
has any right, but you're saying they have that inherent right, except if you're in the 1% of unfortunate souls who make less than 50,000.
There's no. I mean, this is what when they talk about. I mean, this is the guy who tried to sell his whole shtick on ideas. On the right, there's absolutely no basis for anything that they promote. When it comes to any type of policy, other than that, like I've heard the name and people make fun of it, but it's the right thing to do. But there's no explanation whatsoever. Why 15%? Why 18%? You're trying to portray yourself as having some political savvy, so we'll allow people under 50,000 not to get it, but we'll still capture 99% of the people. No, you won't. And we'll let $2 million income earners, have a little bit of tax because of the politics, but this will never pass anyways. Nothing he's saying means anything. And the only people on the right who have ever talked about policy are people whose names you've never heard of, because they have no salience in the conservative movement.
I'm even blanking on them. What were those National Review guys?
I think that's exactly the two guys. I want to say they were the
Ramesh Panuru.
Ramesh and he was doing with somebody else, and they were allowed to publish like one or two things, and then they were just sent off into the ether.
No one's reading that.
No one's reading that. They don't care. It's not. I mean, they passed 20 bills this year.
Yeah. Most of them. What about naming buildings?
Yes, trying to name buildings after I don't know, Confederate generals or something.
Yeah.
By the way, Abe Lincoln introduced the progressive income tax into this country, and we should defend it like that.
Republican. Which one of these should we do?
Oh yeah, the Florida one's good. This is interesting. Angie Nixon, I think, is a rising star if the Democratic Party in Florida would get its crap together and start to promote people like her. But she's been taking a principled stand on things like the war crimes in Gaza, and then on other things as well, because the Republican Party in Florida is just so empowered and out of control. But you'll recall that Ron DeSantis and the Republicans down in Florida were just so impassioned about defending kids from groomers and just making sure that kids are safe, right? I mean, kids have to be safe when they go to school, or if they have a job after school, they have to be safe there from the scary gays. But maybe not so much, because this is her essentially introducing a resolution, an amendment to a piece of legislation in the Florida state government that would require employers of 16 and 17-year-olds to maintain records of sexual harassment so that parents can see them, and Republicans in Florida voted it down.
Yeah, can I say, maybe every business should have to
Yes.
have this sort of thing registered?
But especially in this instance,
absolutely.
Given the hypocrisy.
And
here,
what happens
obviously.
at these lower places that employ high school kids? Yeah.
Let's watch.
Yeah, this one, everyone should be on board. This one requires an employer who employs 16 to 17-year-old children to maintain a record of workplace sexual harassment incidents and provide such report to the parents of any 16 to 17-year-old employee upon hiring. I don't know why anyone would not vote to ensure, again, that our children are safe and in a work environment that is free from sexual predators. We talk a lot about parental rights here in Tallahassee, and this is key. This is critical to maintain, the safety of our children. That's the amendment.
Are there questions on the amendment? Questions on the amendment? Seeing no questions, having no public testimony, is there debate? Debate on the amendment. Representative Escamani, you're recognized in debate.
Thank you so much, Chair. I think it's important for the members to remember that some of the places of employment that have the highest rates of sexual assault are the service industry, and harassment, of course. And so creating an environment where more 16, 17-year-olds are working these spaces does create vulnerabilities, especially if the legislature hasn't championed policies to prevent sexual harassment and assault. And so I do think ensuring that there's a notification process when that happens is very important. I have no doubt that everyone here doesn't want to see young people or any person experience such harm. But the reality of that is when you are a tourism destination like ours, we have high human trafficking rates and we have experiences like this. And I think to protect our youth, it's really important to ensure that we have some sort of mechanism in place. And I think this is a good step in that direction. Thank you, Chair.
Is there further debate? Seeing no further debate, Representative Nixon, you're recognized to close on your amendment. Having waived close, all those in favor of the adoption of the amendment, please signify by saying yay.
Yay!
All those opposed say no. No. So the amendment fails. Seeing 5 hands.
You hear
no explanation.
Female voices and names,
And
right?
I mean, the reason why I think something like this doesn't pass is A, they don't want to establish that there should be any accounting for sexual harassment in the workplace.
Yeah.
That's one of the issues. The other issue is, again, they also don't want a mechanism that exists outside of parents because they know that in a lot of these instances, the victims of these sexual harassment are immigrants or are, children who don't necessarily have parents or guardians who are either there or, engaged. I mean, so they don't want, what they really don't want is that there is an existence of a record of sexual harassment at a location because they don't want businesses to be held accountable.
It's about child labor, right? I mean, we saw this in Arkansas where Huckabee Sanders ended up signing that legislation that would have not required certain kinds of paperwork in order to hire child labor. So for it to go under the table, essentially. And as you say, Sam, that primarily affects kids who are outside of formal systems, like kids who are here without documentation. But it also reminds me of in Florida, what we covered maybe a few months ago, right? I guess this was in September, when Ron DeSantis signed that legislation mandating that employers with 25 or more employees impose penalties on them for if they employed people who were illegal migrants or who are here without documentation. And then you go to that after it was passed and signed by DeSantis, there was that meeting, right, that was hosted by a bunch of business folks basically complaining and saying, how dare you put this burden on me? We want to be able to hire these people. The Republicans have no problem, none whatsoever, with illegal migration and immigration. They just want the people that are here to be as in as precarious of a position as possible so that they're the most susceptible to exploitation. And that includes doing whatever they want in terms of sexual harassment, but mostly for their labor and everything that goes along with that. But, okay, groomers. Thank you. Thank you for protecting children. I thought that was what you cared about. Sad.
We should just say on that Dave Rubin clip, that was Isabel Brown, who works at that same place at Tenet Media.
Oh, they didn't give her a profile page, I guess.
No profile page. And a Minnesota Teamster also had the point of like, you make $49,999. You don't pay any taxes, and then you make $50,000 and you're paying 18 or 12% or 16%.
I mean, I'm sure Dave has thought about those sorts of problems because he wrote a whole book on this.
I mean, there's always a sort of like, you always run into it in every program, right? That is not universal, whether it's, from a taxation standpoint, $1 puts you over, into a higher tax bracket, or $1 makes you ineligible. If you're going to have means testing or in any type of like policies like that, that's always going to be a problem. It would be better, obviously, to have all these programs universal. That's why you do it, so you don't have that drop off. But yes, it is astonishing how little thought goes into what they promote.
Yeah,
really impressive in that respect.
Oh yeah, this isn't. I mean, I haven't seen this. Bradley added this, so we'll. I mean, You want to save it?
Oh, let's do it. No.
Okay.
Here is Steve Deese. The last time we checked in on Steve Deese at the Blaze, he was complaining because he realized that the Republican Party is in this sort of like, I wouldn't say death spiral, but a grift spiral. I think they described it, where it was just like they only promote stuff that is just going to appeal to the most narrow of voters. And they certainly have enough of those voters to, at this point, compete at least in a minoritarian way, right? You can have far less people vote for you and still control the Senate if you're a Republican because of the nature of the way that the Senate works. You can get far less votes, 5-6% less votes in the popular vote and still win the presidency if you're a Republican. We've seen that happen twice over the past 25 years or 20 years. But here they are now talking about Nancy Mace,
who's getting a divorce. I just want to say it's interesting that you hear from like the folks that ousted McCarthy just little things about his conduct, past allegations of flirtation or sexual harassment, not verified, whatever. But that Nancy Mace, Matt Gaetz alluded to the fact that she has some sort of, or was it the other guy that said that, the guy that was upset that McCarthy questioned his faith.
I forget what that guy's name is.
One of the 8 that voted to oust McCarthy made some allusions that Nancy Mace has an issue with McCarthy for certain reasons.
Yeah, the guy he shoved, right, with the elbow. All right, but here is Steve Deese and his Blaze crew talking about this.
Deese reminds me of Milton from Office Space. That's who I but like an alt-right version anyway.
Oh my
gosh.
We have some breaking news, Steve. Nancy Mace and her fiance have split up and are now fighting over a $3.9 million beachfront property with 6 bedrooms. Daily Mail is also reporting she's openly discussed her sex life in the office. Your thoughts, Steve?
That's Madam President to you. Madam President. Madam. She is that star. Hitch your wagon to that train. I mean, even if the Trump grift, even if it works out, man, this is a short-term thing. He's only can do this for one term, can't run again, right? So you got to be think about, to quote Jack Nicholson's Jack Napier in the first Batman movie, Eckhart, think about the future, okay? So, I mean, this is a short-term grift, right? I mean, I'd be like George lassoing the moon there for Donna Reed and It's a Wonderful Life. I'd be hitching my grift wagon to that train. That's what I'd be doing.
That notwithstanding, just to be clear,
and now adding the personal scandal too. I mean, she's just out here dude.
Isn't she twice divorced?
She doesn't.
No, I'm just asking.
She's just checking boxes for political celebrity at this point, man. I mean, she's Ken Griffey Jr. She's the natural. She is the perfect fit for this era. Perfect. Which is why she will rule it. Hate the game, man, not the player.
Okay. Am I right about that though? Isn't she twice divorced?
Sure. Why not?
I know.
And she's like 40, right?
Why not thrice? Did you guys see that? And I mean, she's showing off. I mean, she's 5 minutes from a wet T-shirt contest with the ample bosoms. I mean, this is. What does Caesar Flickerman say about Katniss Everdeen? Girl on fire. That's what she is. Okay, with the jazz hands. That's what she is.
You're saying South Carolinians are not actually considering to write her in for president even harder than they were before?
Well, yeah, I mean, we got the albino that's all hat, no cattle. We've got the mysteriously unmarried senators. We've got the other one who's got a senator, the other one whose girlfriend goes to another school. They gave us Mark Sanford, who chased his mistress to another hemisphere. So I'm And they gave us Nimrata. All right, so I'm just saying, the track record at South Carolina, it's a touch iffy. Just saying.
I
touch
do.
Iffy.
I feel dirty saying this. We still need to take our hats off to the Republicans in the state legislature for doing what they did with their pro-life bill earlier this year. That's the one caveat that I have. I'm not trying to burst your bubble, Steve. I'm sorry. I just feel like they still need some props from earlier this year.
That is, and hey, if that's what they ended up spending all their political capital on, they could have done a lot worse. So I'm with you on that. That was a good point of clarification.
I can't even tell like half of what he's saying other than like.
Did he say that wet T-shirt contest first? But later he says something about how she's quote,
you missed
5
that.
minutes from a. Oh, I did. I must have blacked it out.
Yeah, I don't know how you could lose track of what such an excellent broadcaster like Steve Deese. Who
Well, they're complaining about the moral failings, I think, of
Sarcasm?
politicians from South Carolina, and that the Republican Party sounds like it to him is like Sodom and Gomorrah at this point.
Right.
Just call her
And
a
he's
whore.
complaining-
Just call her a whore. That's what they want to do.
To be fair, he's also complaining about what that he is their gay representative from South Carolina that are closeted. That's what it sounds like to me.
It's inscrutable though. Like it sounded like. I think you're right. I think he was being sarcastic that entire time. But you have to like put a finer point on sarcasm because it sounded like he was actually pro Mace.
He's not.
No. He's there. What is interesting is that they won't be explicit about it because they also know that their own audience, they will lose some audience somewhere if they're explicit about it. It seems like it's sort of fascinating the way they have to talk around this stuff.
Conservative media would be easy job, wouldn't it?
That was the whole point why we used to do Ken, and Ken.
Yeah.
We started the Ken, and Ken thing, which was the sort of the fake. I think I can't remember if we did it first on April Fools or on Halloween, but it was really because, and that was back like when the show was literally just 3 people, period, doing everything. And Michael and I were like, it'd be so easy to be a conservative broadcaster. We don't have to do any work. Like, like Dave Rubin, you just come in and go like, I'm for a flat tax. Yeah. Pick a random number and then pick a couple other things and not have to discuss it.
Fairness?
But are you a good enough actor to embody this guy's kind of sweaty, repressed energy? Where the amount of Madonna horror complexes that are on the right, it's just funny to me.
I couldn't do but Michael and I did. People can go to the Ken, and Ken show on YouTube and actually see what we did. But we couldn't. No, I couldn't embody this type of stuff. Is like there's deep psychological issues there that I couldn't do. That I didn't have that kind of depth as an actor.
It's like
I could just play like a Massachusetts toughie. That was it.
Like we could talk like Israel, Gaza, like different stuff going on with legislatures, and they just are like, "Oh, Nancy Mace is getting a divorce." That's what we're starting the show off
and
with
it's
today.
disgusting.
And there's no
shame.
there's no like what is behind this? Like what is the larger critique? Like yes,
that the Republicans don't have anyone else next, like that their bench is thin or whatever,
or that the Republicans there's nobody there with policy, but there are no Republican policies.
Yeah,
after tax cuts, that's it. They run out of stuff.
Also,
there's a reason. It's the reason why a Nancy Mace can be successful, even if I accept this guy's critique. The reason why is because there's nothing. There's never been anything.
But there's personality.
Paul Ryan was no different. He just would go up there and tell completely fictionalized stories to try and make a larger point that ultimately, at the end of the day, was just as full of holes. It's just that that was prior to Trump, when the party still felt like they had to pretend like they were offering some type of policy prescription, and reporters still pretended like this was a serious party. Paul Ryan, the reason why the press took so long to deal with Donald Trump's lying is because they were so knee-jerk trained to buy the lies of a Paul Ryan. I mean, this was the what did they call those guys? The new guns? Those 3 Republican politicians who had they were so off on where this party was going to, that they celebrated 3 leaders, and within a month, none of them will be in office anymore. None of them will be elected offices. Cantor, Ryan, and McCarthy. That was the future of the Republican Party. None of them are going to be in office. Young guns. That's
there we go.
I mean, this is what was out. And when was this? Is like, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago. 2010. And 2010.
Look
maybe
at that.
So 13 years ago. And the point is, they were all full of it. But the media, like, essentially had to do this both sidesing. The entire Republican Party is a bunch of posers and pretenders. They vote for tax cuts because that's an easy thing to vote for. There's no logic behind it other than their donors are giving them money. And then that's why the entire party is now dominated by the Boeberts, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Maces, the Gateses, the complete showboaters who have no substance, no policy prescriptions, but they get their electoral power from voters who just want to see, like, are you owning the libs in some fashion or another?
Just to put a button on Steve Deese here, though, this is why I have my doubts of the woman. I know that, like, there are theories that a woman would be the first female president will be a conservative because they'll, they'll prop her up, or she'll say everything that validates, like, white men or something. But I don't even think that that's possible right now because of, like, how deeply seated the conservative desire is to either sexualize a woman in power or bring her down. There's really no in between. And now that Nancy Mace, who was sexualized by Deese before, has disappointed him in her immorality for getting divorced twice before getting married, well, it's time to dismiss her because of that. Because it takes very, very little for them to dismiss women.
Yeah, there's a piece we talked to Alex Perrin about in 2017, but from Splinter, the long, lucrative right-wing grift is blowing up in the world's face. And it's basically the idea that the Republican Party made an alliance with these nuts for a long time, basically since Goldwater, but now the people that are making the alliance with the nuts are nuts themselves.
That's what I used to say was, like, they created Frankenstein, and then Frankenstein took over.
Yeah.
All the townspeople became Frankenstein too. Adil, Harvey K., Robert Reich, Tom Hartman are all progressive scholars who are very good on everything except Palestine. The only way to explain this is a bias towards the religion of your birth. Jews are not unique in this phenomenon. Ilhan Omar did not sign on to the Congress article recognizing the Armenian genocide. There are many of my Muslim friends who are good on every issue except for the Saudi Arabian government. As progressives, we should call out whenever and wherever these kinds of myopia exist. Well, I would suggest to you that the myopia might be yours as well, because Tom Hartman is not Jewish. I don't know about Harvey K. and Robert Reich. I happen to know that Tom is not Jewish.
I just think that's reductive, again, to bring it back to religion.
And it's also anti-Semitic, and it's also the problem that we have with Joe Biden getting up there and saying that Zionism is, is to protect all Jews.
Yeah, it's reductive, and it does, I think, promote anti-Semitism, and it's also just like making this again about it's obscuring the real conversation where when we're talking about Israel as an extension of U.S. empire and power, and that's much more constructive. And
the issue is not a bias towards the religion of your birth.
Yep.
I mean, I think to the extent that you see Jews, in progressive Jews who are supportive of Israel, it's not a function that they were born Jewish. It is a function of the culture and the indoctrination that they were subject to because of that. If I was born a Jew and did not go to Hebrew school and did not go to temple, I would be far more likely to not have a knee-jerk reaction to in regards to this situation than otherwise. I went to Hebrew school 3 times a week. until I was 13, maybe 15, I think it was, or 2 times a week after 13, whatever. The point being, and I went in an era where the distance between the Holocaust and when I was like 10 was almost half that distance now, between now and when I was 10. And so I had teachers who were Holocaust survivors, and the predicate was the Holocaust. And the subject was that it in a sentence? Predicate and then subject? Or what comes after the predicate?
Well, I need to know where you're going.
Well, I'm just saying in whatever grammatical structure is.
I think predicate comes first. But
And the point being that the predicate was the Holocaust, and the subject was then Israel.
Oh, yeah.
That's the way that it finished. Set up, punchline type of thing. And that level of indoctrination is not necessarily a function of being a Jew, although it would be unlikely that you would go to Hebrew school. But certainly we see with Christian Zionism, they also have a knee-jerk response to Israel. And that is not because they're Jewish. It is because their teaching has taught them that existence of Israel is hugely important for the sake of something that is actually very uncomfortable for Jews, which would be eternal hellfire. So I think reducing it to the religion of your birth is a real mistake.
It's also essentialist of your birth.
Exactly.
I mean, they're secular.
I mean, how perfect could it be that you named a non-Jewish person with your new, decoder for this conflict? It's just not a useful. It's just not a useful frame to.
I don't really like the implications. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Of the undertones.
Well, it's somebody that wants to make the fight against religion the priority again.
Or clash of civilizations, as opposed to structural analysis. We cover politics, not which team is better, which book is better.
All right, we're gonna do 10 IMs, then we get out of here.
Oh, good.
Duncan Ida Hostop. Duncan Idaho stop. Duncan Idaho stop. Holy mixed metaphors, Batman. Wow, this guy really wants to have sex with Nancy Mace. That's not what they wrote.
Oh yeah, those references are wild. 3 references to the combined age of those references was like a century old.
I know.
And then a Katniss Everdeen Hunger Games one?
Juniper J. To Emma and Dayen's point, when Biden sent huge numbers of immigrants away, Venezuelans, the right-wing media accused them of doing so because they potentially would be conservative. Jewish anti-fascist. Hey, Sam and Emma, I passed my thesis defense yesterday and was hoping I could get a shofar. Listening to the MR crew got me through countless grinding sessions. So grateful to have the show. Left his best. Miss you, Michael.
Oh my gosh, congrats. My thesis defense was one of the most nervous I've ever been. And it was, that's a huge accomplishment. Congratulations. I remember that now vividly, oddly.
Wait, what was your thesis defense?
I did my thesis on corporate personhood in U.S. Supreme Court case law.
Oh my gosh!
And you know that when you mentioned Michael, Jewish anti-fascist, that viral speech of him at my college giving that talk, and that classroom is where I did my thesis defense. That same classroom
Oh my God.
where he was talking about Israel. Yeah.
Nug Wrangler, shout outs to Gentrified Potato, who gifted 40 Twitch subs. That's got to be a record. Wow.
Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. That's a big.
That's fantastic. Alex JS85, insane to me that Democrats are so obsessed with people dying in Ukraine that they're willing to let more people on the border die to get more money to Ukraine. Seems like Biden wants the border off the front page to the same extent that Jared Kushner and Trump wanted the Middle East off the front page with the Abraham Accords, which Biden continued. Biden seems to be just like want history to end.
I do also think like the Ukraine stuff, they're having to conscript over 40 males is something
in Ukraine.
In Ukraine, yeah, I know Russia's already conscripting. It's horrible, but like we're supporting one side, and I think I'm not comfortable conscripting 45-year-old guys to fight in a war they don't want to fight in.
Kowalski, it seems clear to me that after talking with more people out at the meatpacking plant, that those in positions of power with corporate America prefer the current structure of immigration because it pins part of the working class against another part of the working class, without a doubt. And by leaving a significant proportion of the American workforce at the mercy of deportation, the chances of unionizing or reporting labor violations to the Department of Labor is essentially a death sentence for the undocumented immigrants. Absolutely.
Exactly. ICE has always been an asset for bosses that and to help them control undocumented labor because you're going to get uppity and you're going to say you don't want your kid to work at 3 a.m. in the the meat shredding device. Here comes ICE.
Sam, are you unaware that trans people cause recessions? It's basic economics. Eli from Jersey, assuming you guys saw the new clip from the new Tim Pool music video, and I'm certain it's got to be bait.
We did, but
I'm staying away from that because I don't get it. First of all, I thought it was somebody making fun of him, and now that it's not, I'm less interested, to be honest, because I didn't. Yeah.
Well, it's just bad on its own.
Small D Democrat.
Right? His song.
I thought it was kind of trying to be funny though, but maybe I'm mistaken.
Calling Fetterman the bad-dressed cinema implies the existence of a well-dressed cinema, which there is no proof.
Well said.
And
well enough. Said.
Small D Democrat also says Deese needs to keep Griffey's name out of his mouth. All right. 3 more. Fizzy drinks. Could this guy finish a sentence without referencing a movie? Ample bosoms? I'm only listening. Is this guy wearing a fedora?
Yes. Very strong fedora energy with these.
Jay Tingle. Okay. Subject comes before the predicate. Usually subject is whom, predicate contains the verb. All right. Yes, I thought I'd ask the guy who got his master's in literature.
I heard pre and I'm like, that must come early.
And grammar is authoritarian.
I mean, I wanted to say like premise and joke, but it's a poor, it gets confusing. A country mouse tech. Forbes was 1996. Oh, Jesus, am I old? Big Baby from Atlanta. Epic Games is completely in it for themselves. Anything good that comes out of their actions is coincidental. I got no problem with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's with splits in the capitalist structure can be productive.
Leftist Claybot. I'm a big ideas guy. Now let's talk about how taxation is theft, but also my unsubstantiated flat tax proposal is awesome. Actual passage from Don't Burn This Book, Dave Rubin. And the final IM of the week. Let's see here. I'll grab it from somebody we haven't heard from in a while.
Sorry. No.
Final IM of the week, Chris Burdick. Francis24's YouTube channel posted a fascinating, disturbing video about the uptick in settler violence in the West Bank. The interviews with the settlers were chilling, just unassailable fanaticism and homicidal racism. If there's any doubt what's going on over there has little to do with Hamas, this blows it apart. Hamas provided Netanyahu with a convenient excuse to do what he planned to do anyways. It's genocide, pure and simple. On a more positive note, the video also highlights the efforts of the Israeli activists who are helping the Palestinians in the West Bank. Chris Burdick also says, I think I saw the ample bosoms open for the butthole surfers.
Oh.
Good for I-24. I-24 is an Israeli French news station based in Jaffa Port in Tel Aviv, so good coverage.
Really? They were the ones that initially reported that beheaded babies thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm a little bit taken aback. They're the ones who had Michael on to talk
France's
about.
France's 24. Is it the same one?
Is there France 24 and I-24 in France?
I don't know. Maybe. I think it says France's 24s. We'll look into that. Bradley,
congrats
good job.
on
Congratulations.
Getting married. I mean,
he could be married right now, right?
He
Or is
could
that happening
be.
a little bit later?
He's doing like the official, like legal, religious part now, and then his actual wedding's in 2 weeks or so. So, congrats to him, though.
Matt, congratulations on still being single.
Not single, but
well,
married.
Not married, unmarried, I should say. Emma, on your
I'm
engagement.
not. Yeah, right. Not yet.
But great job this week, nevertheless, of all of your marital statuses.
Congratulations on your marital status, Sam.
Thank you very much. Earned it. Folks, we'll see you on Monday.
It might take all the strength I got to get to where I want, but I know somehow I'm gonna get there. I just got caught between the truth and the light bar. But finding out won't make me feel any better. Yeah, I know the clock is ticking, but the meds are gonna kick in, and my pilot light shining bright. I guess somewhere the choice was made for the option where you don't get paid for the road